Our next guest and presenter is Dmitri Belotchkine, Solution Architect from TrendMicro company. Mr. Belotchkine is certified information system security professional with more than 20 years of IT security experience, and he's a regional account manager of TrendMicro. Dmitri joined TrendMicro Europe Solution Architect team in 2015. So, Dmitri will talk today about TrendMicro's extended detection and response XDR solution. Welcome, Dmitri. Hope I find you well.
Good afternoon, Marco. Thank you for introduction. Yeah, everything is good here on my side.
Okay, great. So screen is yours.
Thanks so much. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll talk today indeed about XDR, TrendMicro, cross-layer, cross-detection and response. So I'll talk about what it is, what new technology we bring to the market to help our customers to address ever-growing threats, emerging threats, and the new techniques, and how actually we can streamline and help you to organize your security operations more efficiently in terms of organization, in terms of the budgeting, but most importantly, how more efficient can you protect your organizations from these new types of threats. All right. So before I'm going to talk about the technology itself, just some background why we're doing this, why we actually making these steps to create basically new approach to security operations. So as a seasonal security professionals that you are now joining this conference, I think whether you've done it before or that's the first time you do it, any organization you need to secure, you need to ask yourself why and what I'm going to do about it. So that's basically a strategy. So what the business I'm going to protect, the processes, the technologies I used, and make according to the existing ecosystem of security controls, make decisions how you're going to go about your risks. And the picture that you see here, very simple but very powerful. We usually incline to go full-blown protection. So we want to mitigate the risk as much as we can, whether it's in a process layer, whether it's in technology, whether it's in the policies, and so on and so on. So we want to address the risks and protect our organizations and business assets from being compromised, being abused, stolen, and so on. And that's all good, and that's where we are in the business for more than 30 years. Although the full protection doesn't exist, so there is still the way to go around of the protective controls and penetrate the network, the endpoints, steal the data, compromise the integrity of the servers, and now with IoT and operational technology 4.0, Industry 4.0, also now talking about compromise of our daily lives. That could be something critical for the current state, but it could be also something like a factory or a hospital. So detection is paramount, and detection must be built on something else than protective layer. So we cannot use the same technology, otherwise it's repetition. So detection layer helps you to uncover those breaches, and it could be applied in technology. That's where, again, we are in the business on different levels. We can talk about network detection. We can talk about detection on the hosts and servers, in the cloud, on premises, on mobile devices, and so on. So these different types of technologies, again, must be equipped with different type of detection mechanism, different than those that we use for protection. And then we need to close the loop. So from production, we go into response layer. That's where our security operations teams usually busy with not only managing the technical security controls, but managing, detecting security incidents, hopefully not that severe, and taking mitigation steps as soon as possible. It could be as simple as reimage of the compromised device, but it can be much more sophisticated detection and response activities, like tracing the intruder from one premise to another, from one technology to another, and so on. So that's where the SOC teams are playing a big role. And of course, we want to close the loop. So we want to learn the lessons and want to improve our protection layer. Predominantly, we want to have it automated. So to have closed loop, which is automated, learn from detections and improve our protection layer. And then we continue the loop. That's how we see the good strategy should be built. So how to execute on security strategy, and I'm not going to talk about like different methodologies, how you would do that. So that's a different story. But when we take project approach, we will plan it. We'll talk about, the maybe new controls we need to implement. We will then implement those controls, and then we go in operation phase to do response, to protect our business assets. What I want to talk about is that what we need for those strategies. We, of course, need people, processes, and technologies, right? Again, no-brainer, quite obvious things. But what's apparent of this, and I'm speaking from my experience, again, more than 20 years in IT security in different roles, what I see that usually, if we talk about IT security budgets, that the split between the people and processes and the technology is as such as 15% for technology, 85% for the people and processes around them. So this is the reality. And of course, to get more out of your budget, it's quite logical to look towards to get more out of the technology layer, right? Because that's where the minimum you spend, and the more you get out of technology layer for this money, the better. All right. So then, talking about technology and security operations, I like this picture from Gartner, which articulates different domains of technology that modern security operating center needs to employ, and modern organizations as well. So it's no-brainer that in the middle of your technology ecosystem, you'll have a SIEM, which will collect different technology signals from maybe security controls, maybe from the assets that operate your business, could be like servers and switches and so on, the Active Directories. And then it will be supplemented with detection layers. So we have prevention and mitigation tools over here. And we talk about our preventative controls, right? The firewalls and proxies and antivirus and intrusion prevention systems and what's not. But then it's not enough for efficient security operations, because we talked about these new ways how the bad guys are actually circumventing the protective layer. Because usually protective layer must be conservative. We do not want to suffer from false positives, from those alerts which are not real. And then think about that the protection actions will be taken on them. So those techniques are quite conservative. To amend our ability to find intruders in our networks, we need to have something more. And that's the whole market emerged around EDR and network forensics, network threat analytics. So that's the layer. And further amended with workflow and orchestration and threat intelligence, which is also quite important. So EDR, endpoint detection response, that's one of the things which came, I think, last couple of years, right? And why we need EDR. So I'm coming to XDR story, but I want to start with EDR, the endpoint detection response. So this detection layer, detection techniques, which needs to be different from protective layer, is needed for example, this case. So here's a very simple case where you have, I would say, targeted attack, where the attacker will start with a phishing email. So the point of entry is made with the email, where you have either link or attachment, and then the victim will click on it. You will have maybe a document, right? And document may be weaponized with macros, with file as PowerShell spawned from there. And usually it's all very innocent and very close to a normal behavior, what people usually will do. So we receive emails every now and then, and there are documents in them every now and then, and they can be weaponized. So they are not bringing, known virus, known payloads on your system, but they will go and leverage maybe infected websites that they already compromised, and they will get additional payloads which will complete the weapon, and they will make themselves persistent in the registry, establish command control communication, and that will be safe line for the attacker, because using this command control communication, they can propagate further in your network. The communication is established from inside of your network to outside. So this is, again, nothing that you can do on a firewall too much, because you need to have those ports open, maybe AT443 for web browsing, maybe some other ports, and they abuse those ports. So as a result, if you think about security operations, which predominantly based on detections coming from the logs, whether of your IT system or security controls like firewalls and proxies and IDS, again, that will be detection logs of something that we can detect in a protective layer with very conservative techniques, right? So those sophisticated attacks, you probably will not notice because you will have no logs whatsoever. So as a result, you will be lost. And of course, the business damage depends on how many days the breach exists, right? So this, we talk about breach situation right here. So if breach exists for 1 day or for 200 days, that's what makes a difference for the business. So what EDR is doing, well, you sit on the device and you, we call it observe a behavior of processes, users, network, files coming in and getting deleted. So all this data will be somehow digested. So how the vendor is doing this? Well, first of all, expert tools, right? You have security research teams, and security research teams, they are looking in the past activities and the past hacks and the past attacks and APTs. So they create rules which can be applied on top of the telemetry data that you collect from the endpoint. Then also, depending on the quality of the vendor and threat intelligence, there are also groups who are monitoring underground chatters, and they get indicates compromised from those black hat communities as well. And then we have threat intelligence. So threat intelligence, again, that's a common knowledge. You can think about like VirusTotal, but there are also other paid threat feeds that you can leverage, which will contain information about bad files, bad IP addresses, URLs, and so on and so on. And then the last but not least is user behavior. So how users are behaving. Are they normal in this point of time? Are they not normal? Are they doing something out of normal? So these kind of things needs to be checked. The problem is, and again, I'm coming back to the point that in detection layer, we're using less conservative techniques. Think about data staking, machine learning, right? So these kind of things, they play at the edge, especially if the attacker play with normal tools that you use for your IT administration usually. So that EDR will produce a lot of detection, a lot of alerts going to SOC, right? And SOC will have to deal with this information. And from our experience, if you just apply traditional EDR approach, you will get a lot of false positive. More than 75% of those detections, because they are opportunistic in many ways, they will yield a lot of false positives. So your SOC team will need to actually deal with it. And that's being observed by Gartner as well. So here is the quote from one of the Gartner analysts. She's really saying that the level of automation and advanced analytics in most EDR products is minimal and best. And again, that's understandable because we're playing on the edge. We cannot really say we just use signatures to detect those malwares. No, we need other techniques, and as such, that will require another human to really validate, and sometimes it requires high skills as well. So where it leads us to, for small and medium business, we get overload of different consoles because again, depending on your strategy, how you want to address detection layer, you can start doing different point solutions. I need one EDR for network for endpoints. I need network detection response for my network. I need cloud detection response for my cloud, and so on and so on. So you will end up with lots of disconnected detection response solutions. On top of that, you also still have your protection layer. So additional screens, because they are disconnected if you use different vendors. You will have additional screens for your detection layer, for protection layer as well. And if you want to scale out, so for very large enterprises, we see the staff of security operations center just exploding. People getting hired, and usually they're getting hired for that reasons. You get more technology to operate. Does it really need to be that way? That's a big question, and probably a question that you can answer yourself. Now, on the other side, if you start looking for more people, there we have another problem. Again, the threats are emerging. There are more and more of them, but also technology offerings are more and more on the market. So as a result, if you take point solution strategy, then that's what will drive the numbers here. So the job market in 2020 grew 25%. So there are 700,000 more security professionals at work in 2020 than in 2019. So in total, 3.5 million professionals worldwide. And that's not counting the gap that we have actually in the industry. There are still many unfilled seats because there are no people. Now, gaining meaningful visibility is challenging, and we all get it. Again, if we look at the statistics, majority of the companies and IT security professionals saying so get more than 10,000 alerts per day. So that's very modest. I would say sometimes we're talking about millions of alerts, depending what you count as an alert. You can look at the firewall event and say this can be, a low block of a packet is one alert. But then you can really talk about many millions of such events, right? And that's again happening because we increase our technology footprint. We increase different isolated, disconnected solutions, desperately trying to find out the way how we can get the full picture of the whole cycle of the attack. Because the attacks are very complicated. It's not hit and run situations anymore. Almost in all cases nowadays, depending, of course, who you are, what your profile is, but almost in all of the cases, it's very targeted attacks. So what's happening is that even with EDR on endpoints, you will have limited view. You will see something happening on endpoint, and at most what you can do is make a conclusion that your protective control failed because all of a sudden you see a strange connection, and that's probably originated from your PowerShell, which again originated from a Word document, right? But then you also have network, and in the network you start seeing abnormal behavior. You start seeing maybe movement of the hacking tools in your network, and you have no idea where it's coming from. You just see internal IP addresses, right? Then you have your data centers or the cloud, and in the cloud you have workloads, or maybe you use containers, which can be vulnerable, which can be abused from stolen credentials on endpoints in the first place. Maybe there is no lack of authentication on them, what's not. So all of this will have isolated detections if you will get them at first place. And then, of course, you have emails. And now we move also towards the cloud, and we use a lot of SaaS offerings like G Suite and Office 365. And what we see that predominantly emails became for quite a long time and now the initial point of entry. So how would you connect the dots? How would you really see that that the attack is in progress? So the current approach most of the organizations are using, I buy the SIEM, I will collect the logs from my technical controls from my systems, and I will do the analysis. It's all good, and that's what I think common sense is, because that's what connects the dots. The problem is that your SIEM will again be based on the detections coming from your protective controls, and in most of the cases they will just not see the techniques which the bad guys, the hackers, operate nowadays. So the answer is we need to have a different approach, and we need to be able to correlate detections from our protective layer and telemetry data with security analytics on top of it together in different layers. That's what forms XDR, cross-layer detection response. Now, there is still a good use case for SIEM, and that comes back to the place of our security operations. Why are we doing the security operations in our companies, right? We're doing this to protect our business, and as such, the good approach would be is really coming from the understanding of the business, the automation layer, how the different servers, endpoints, network layer contributes to your business process. And then based on that, you can use the understanding of the common business process, correlating different events around this understanding in your SIEM. Then you will come from business perspective. If this and that happens, it has implications to my process XYZ, right? So this is what usually SIEM is good for. But then quite often I'm talking to my customers, I hear that at first place there was no connection. So people, when they plan SIEM implementation, they come in and they only look at the technology layer. They only look at technical ecosystem. So this will be then missing altogether. Or if you had a good intent and you really looked at your business layer and you have correlation rules in a SIEM which are business oriented, but then over time you need to keep doing this, right? So after 6 months or 1 year, you need to come back with the business units and you need to discuss whether they stayed on the same technology path or they already deviated. They maybe took some other solutions which you are not even monitoring with your security controls. So this is quite important, because if you have no connection to your business level, your business processes, then you're only ending up correlating technology events in your SIEM. And that again becomes really very narrow vision. So I'm coming back to the same use case I showed before for EDR. Why EDR? So the same use case, you have a phishing email which is weaponized to contain a link to a compromised website where the victim can download the hacking tool or malware. Then email will be opened, Word document started, it has macro which starts file as PowerShell, which reaches out to command control communication and then gets additional payload, maybe some credentials will be dumped. And using those credentials, the attacker will maybe launch new containers and do something bad, right? So if you have just SIEM, you will probably at most get a command control event, which probably can detect it by your firewall or by proxy, again, if you apply maybe threat intelligence. And then if you take next step and you not just correlate your logs, but you go and you deploy endpoint detection response agent, then this agent will see a little bit more. It will see, it will collect telemetry that Word document was open and abnormally PowerShell started from there, which actually reached out to command control communication, and then AWS credentials were accessed, right? So that's what you can collect with telemetry and maybe apply some rules on top to do the detection. But again, it's not enough, because the full chain contains also email, and it contains the cloud and containers, which EDR cannot observe. So the only answer will be you need to have full visibility across your emails, endpoints, network, and the cloud. That's where you get the full visibility. And then in turn, because your SIEM is still useful to do the business correlation, to maybe correlate with different vendors, you will benefit from XDR by getting high fidelity alert. So it will be really actionable, many alerts less than you used to have without XDR. So it will make operations of your security operations team much more efficient. So what TrendMicro is doing with XDR, we leverage our technology that we already have, and hopefully you're using it and you're a happy customer. And as you know, that we provide technology to protect the network layer, and it could be protection like with our tipping point IPS, or with the deep discovery line for breach detection. It can be email. Again, we protect email from spam, from malware, from business email compromise cases, and so on and so on. The endpoints with Apex One, great endpoint protection platform with many technique and technology to protect really good your endpoints from the threats. And then cloud workload with Cloud One, workload security and application security and network security. So these are protective layers, but what we've done, we actually equipped those technologies, whether it's appliance, whether it's agent, we equip those technology with the ability to collect telemetry, right? So this telemetry is just collected. It could be user behavior, it could be network behavior, it could be process behavior, and so on and so on. So this data will be then collected in one place. And we talk about big data now. So it will be data lakes, which will contain many terabytes of data. And this data will be then analyzed with different tools, not with the detection engines, but with the more aggressive tools. Security analytics, that's what we're talking about. It will contain different techniques and machine learning, data staking again, and threat intelligence, which we possess, which we already have, and we accumulated from many years of operations. This threat intelligence will be applied as well, our own plus third-party threat intelligence that you may have as well. Okay. So as a result, we'll be able to detect more with correlated models. So we do correlation inside of XDR. So that's what your SIEM would do. But you don't need to create content for SIEM. So those rules are there as part of the platform. And we keep increasing those rules based on our threat research. So this is continuously evolving system without you doing anything in terms of increasing, the content of your SIEM machine. We give you sophisticated visualization tools. It's very good actually to see the picture instead of reading the table, right? The table, which will consist of maybe thousands of different alerts and detections. So with the picture, you will get much quicker understanding what actually happened at first glance. And then, of course, it's not only looking and detecting, but also providing the actions. And that's what we also give you. Response from one console, from one pane of glass, which you can use for monitoring. From the same console, you can do response across different layers, whether it's email, whether it's endpoint, and whether it's cloud. All right. And then, of course, we understand that we are not, in a green field in most of the cases. So you will still need to integrate with XDR. You will need to integrate your tools. You will need to integrate your intelligence. You will need to integrate your operational frameworks and so on. So for that, we open up API, which you can use to integrate with the SIEM, but also with SOAR platforms, security orchestration response platforms. Now, on top of that, we also can give you managed XDR service, and I'll talk about this a little bit more details later on today. But yeah, you can count on us if you see the benefit of the platform, but you have just no hands because of the lower budget, or you just cannot find the right skill sets. That's also common nowadays. You can safely turn to us, and we can help you with maybe jumpstart the service, and then you take over. Or maybe just want to buy service and benefit from this great service with a great technology. And we're not standing still. So XDR is the future for us, and we are going to increase the scale of technology that we're connecting to the platform in the future. We're talking about maybe operational technology. So we have specialized product lines for smart factories, smart hospitals, connected cars. So this all coming in the future as part of the XDR platform as well. So I talked about the way how we provide you this extra detection layer. So this is again predominantly collecting telemetry from different platforms. But then this telemetry will be grouped together, and it will be analyzed by different engines. So here you see examples of filters. So the filters, there will be different atomic filters, which can be then grouped in rules, and rules can be grouped in models. So sometimes it's fixed, sometimes it's volatile, with machine learning as well. So this will be kind of an adaptive security analytics model, which will be self-learning as well. So the examples of filters against suspicious events, it could be something like low prevalence files execution. When executable file enters your network, and we measure the maturity of the file, basically looking, have we seen this file before anywhere in the world as a TrendMicro? And if we haven't seen it before, it's unique hash, then it's very suspicious. You may take a decision to sandbox those files, right? Or at least alert on those files' appearance and execution. It can be an email attachment with a rare file type as well. Can be abuse of the ports, non-HTTP traffic, command control communication, like reverse shell going through your port 80, because that's what you opened for web browsing for your employees. It could be black events, like simple exploit detection, someone shooting exploit and you see it on the wire. Can be stolen certifications and they signed files. So we've seen those cases before as well. Simply known addresses for command control communication that we learned from analysis of APT groups operations, malicious operations. It could be also anomaly, behavior anomaly, like unusual logins, unusual Microsoft Office application behavior, unusual remote desktop connections out of blue, right? So you start maybe brute force and start connecting somewhere, or maybe you connected to some systems which you never connected before. So this all will be a live model, which will help us to address the breaches, again, with much more sensitive detection techniques that we have in protective layer. So why would we add XDR to the endpoints? Well, quite simply, the endpoint is the new playground, right? Even 5 years ago, I think we all were concerned about web services and servers and data centers. So nowadays, it's more about endpoints. There are much more targeted attacks, even opportunistic attacks. They are made massive, so they can actually scale out and they attack the endpoints. So the endpoint is paramount, and the activity data which we collect from endpoints also quite interesting. So the processes which started, which commands are executed, it could be, again, the example of PowerShell, which drops the executable, which executes and connects to command control communication. That's what you can see on the endpoint, but you also can see registry modification and so on. So this is very sweet data that we collect on top of what we can protect you from. And also with XDR, we can respond on endpoints, because if we at the early stage detected the breach and it's not too late, we see only few endpoints are involved and the hacker did not propagate yet in your environment, you can also do response, isolate the endpoint altogether or start killing the processes, delete files, and so on and so on. But again, that would be not enough. So if you take just endpoint, probably in most of the case, you'll be just good with EDR. So why would you have XDR, right? So the next you will go and you will ask yourself, okay, I got this PowerShell from Word document, where it came from. And here you would need to start connecting the other technologies where the threat originates from. And again, in most of the cases, it's email. So that's no-brainer. You need to connect email to XDR layer. You will start seeing all these emails, a majority of them not malicious, but it's good to have this telemetry, because at the end of the day, when you discover malops using new techniques, then you can correct your protection layer, and all these innocent emails that you thought they're innocent, they turn to be malicious. So you need also to take a very prompt response and maybe quarantine or delete those emails while they're still in mailboxes before the recipients actually clicked on stuff. And then cloud server workloads. Again, majority of the business, at least in the West, moving to the cloud. So people use less and less data centers. But even then, if you use data center with physical servers, that's usually where the crown jewel data is. That's where your most important data relies. You would need to, again, get more visibility on what's going on, because there are different scenarios. It could be vulnerable application which attacked from outside, and the attacker is using this as pivot point to propagate, and they can start shoot around from there. But it also could be compromised endpoint, again, starting with a phishing email, and then the credentials were dumped, or maybe there was a brute force attack, and the passwords are not that difficult, so they were cracked. And from there, from the endpoint, they propagate laterally, so lateral movement within your network towards your servers and applications. So again, full visibility with understanding of telemetry about processes which started, about users which actually started those processes, which commands executed. That's all part of the puzzle that you need to stitch together. So you need this data as well. And the last but not least is your network. So you can also think, okay, but I have EDR, maybe I have agent on my managed devices, but think about the others and how many times we've heard about compromised office devices, compromised network devices, routers and switches. It could be unmanaged devices in your network. We're now also talking about Industry 4.0, where we start merging networks, OT networks, and IT networks. How scary it sounds, but that happens. So that will be your EDR blind spots. That's where your network detection mechanism will help you to uncover additional or next steps that the attacker is doing in your network. So altogether, if you stitch that all, you will get the best value, I would say. Although you can use pieces by itself, and if you are a customer of TrendMicro for existing protection technology, you can enable most of it for XDR use as well. So if you're already Apex One customer, you can enable the XDR connection. There is also a free program that you can use to get a taste what value XDR can bring to you before you buy it. But again, the most value comes from integration of different technologies in one view. And that's what we were asking about, and that's what we deliver, is single pane of glass, which also helps you to provide mitigation, not only detections. Right. One thing I forgot to mention, and I think it's very important, again, TrendMicro is a veteran, so with 30 plus years on the protection protecting our customers from threats and malware. And we're stepping on the detection and response journey now. So if you think about the market and that there are now new companies, new vendors who are purely EDR players or network forensics analytics players or another point solution, again, think about this gap between your protective layer and detection layer. So you would need to manage that if you take this strategy. So with us, you will not have this gap because in XDR, we correlate our detection logs from protection with, again, findings of detection layer of the machine learning and data staking and threat intelligence and so on. So this is seamlessly integrated. You will not have two opinions, like you have some vendor says it's bad blocking, or other way around, not blocking, but then EDR vendor says it's malicious, and you probably don't know if EDR is false positive or not. So you would need to find the truth yourself. So with us, this problem doesn't exist because first we think about protection, so it's automated protection, and then broad detection and response. So we extend simplified investigation across entire TrendMicro solution, right? You won't need to have different screens, different operating consoles. XDR platform will bring it all together for you. And it will be enriched with telemetry and threat intelligence in a graphical view. So you will start seeing much more. It's like changing your glasses. Or maybe you didn't have glasses and now you put it on and all of a sudden you see much more vivid and sharp. So that's what you get with XDR. Just a little bit of numbers, and you would say, okay, but what is the quality of your solution? Just to prove on a couple of fronts. First of all, MITRE attack framework. If you don't use it, please take a look. I think it's a very good one to create very systematic approach for your red and blue teams together, work on the gaps and address, these gaps in the common language. But also many vendors now using it. We are not exclusion, so we use ATT&CK tactics and techniques in our solutions, including XDR. So on, excuse me. So on the APT29, and I hope I'm still, I'm working. Still on the APT29 test, we were #1 in initial detection. So you can go to MITRE attack website and check that. So I think that's a good proof of our skills. But also analysts like Forrester also put us in leaders quadrant for EDR enterprise detection response in Q1 2020. So this gives you also good feeling that you're not dealing with a startup company, we're a proven company on the market and also proven by analysts. Okay. So then my question to you would be, how do you reduce alert overload? How do you go about your security operations? How can you make it more efficient? And I'm sure the many pain points I was talking about today, you recognize, right? Especially in a situation, I'm coming back to IC Square survey. In 2019, there were still more than 4 million unfilled cybersecurity positions. So demand is growing for people. And how would you address these ever-growing threats with, maybe additional security technical controls that you take in-house? So if you're puzzled, if you don't know, and if you want our help, we can also offer you TrendMicro Managed XDR. So this is the service we launched also together with XDR platform. What it contains, first of all, 24/7 monitoring and detection. So I can imagine that not all businesses are enterprises, large enterprises. So you might be medium business, small business. So you have no luxury to do 24/7 monitoring, but depending on your business, you might provide 24/7 service to your customers. Maybe you have 24/7 digital presence, and hackers, they will hack you 24/7. So regardless whether you sleep or not. And in terms of the content, we give you rapid investigation mitigation. We will take a look on detections coming from your ecosystem through XDR platform. We will do the triage. We will apply additional threat intelligence available only for managed XDR security analysts. And we will contact you with details of what needs to be done or what has been done in order to mitigate your threat. And on top of that, we can also do threat hunting. So not only reacting to the detections, but also proactively taking indicators of compromise, maybe learned from previous attacks, maybe part of this attack, and then sweeping your environment, looking for other occurrences of those files, malicious files being present, or connections being established for endpoint or server XYZ. So again, if you connect one or another technology, that's all good. The better that you connect all the technologies, that would be endpoint, network, so DBScover Inspector for network, Apex One for endpoint, server and cloud workloads with Cloud One, workload security, or email, whether it's Office 365 or G Suite. And the data, the telemetry, and the detections will be collected, will be crunched through our security analytics engines, and then will brought to the attention of SOC analysts. And SOC analysts will do the rest. What it means for you as a customer, that would mean the following. So here is the example of that, at one particular day, your security landscape will generate a little more than 11 million security events. Right. So from there, we see just technically, we have more than 2,000 high severity events. Then security analysts, based on these events, but also based on the indicators compromise relevant for today in the context of your organization, may be found in your organization, may be found in organizations which are in the same geography or are in the same industry, and maybe there are campaigns now in the health sector or in manufacturing and so on, in banking sector. So they know the context of today. They will use this indicators compromise to do the sweep, and altogether it will result in some number of investigations. So in this example, 529, and from those investigations there will be 11 alerts raised. And hopefully those alerts will not be really business critical for you. Like in my case, all these 11 alerts are not severity ones. So there will be severity 2, 3, something to take care of, but not really burning emerging situations for your business. So this kind of service you can get with managed XDR as well. So if you think about data privacy, or just concerned with your data being sent abroad, within Europe we have presence. So in terms of where we store the data, it's Germany, and Security Operations Center, the personnel, the people who are actually doing the triaging and response, they are in Ireland. So that's all within European boundaries. But if you're international business, well, be aware that we're internationally present as well, so in North America, but also in Asia. Okay, so if it all sounds good and you would scratch your head like, where do I start? How do I start? You can go directly to our sales representatives and, of course, start talking. If you still want to, on your own pace to try it and see what the benefits are, you can try our free XDR security assessment service. If you go with the URL that you see on the screen above, you will have an ability to start free of charge, no obligations, test on your email infrastructure. So you can connect Office 365 or G Suite. And you can also complemented with the endpoint inspection. So you can have agents, XDR agents for Windows and Mac OS, and you can install on the machines within your environment, selected machines, and you can also see what the XDR agents can actually offer you in terms of value add on top of maybe your existing endpoint protection platform, maybe on top of your existing EDR. All right. So I guess with that, I'm jumping into demo. I see that we still have some time, and it will be a quick demo. So I already logged into XDR portal. So you will see this nice view. You'll be greeted with the dashboard, and dashboard is dynamic and it has number of widgets which you can use. Starts with cloud app usage summary. So we help you to detect usage of shadow ITs here. So you will see different services which are used by your employees. And you can basically just go and say, this one is sanctioned, this one is unsanctioned. Maybe there are new ones used which you never thought about. That's what the nature of the business today. They just start, using cloud services. So that will help you to do that. But I think most importantly will be result of the data correlation. And result of the data correlation is what we call workbench. So you will be able to jump in the workbench either through the widget or using this menu. And on the workbench, you will see different detections. But you see, this is not simple malware detection or malicious communication detection or port block. Although we also have those, like here, ransomware detection blocked. But majority of these detections are correlated detections. For example, suspicious web access after suspicious email. So here again, you see correlation of email and endpoint detection. Could be cybercrime malware, right? Which you can actually open up and see what's inside. So once you open it up, and it's again quite simple correlation here, you can see that there was one endpoint which exhibits the unauthorized file encryption. So there is something on this machine which starts file encryption. So basically ransomware behavior. And you see different files and processes started, but it's also interesting that there is a common file or two files which actually also present on another endpoint and on the server as well. So right away with this visualization of the chain, you see the scope of attack. You can see that this machine may be a starting point, but then it moved to the other machines as well. So what you can do from here, you can isolate endpoint if you want, and start working in a safe way with endpoint. But you can also see the execution profile, what exactly happened on this machine. So you will see that Explorer, from Explorer, someone there was a zip file, unzipper, which will unzip the file, and the file started the process, and this process has low global prevalence. So this is unique executable file, which is probably malware in most of the cases, which was dropped, and in turn it created another file, mycrypt.exe, and it created process as well. So this guy started the encryption, and you see that looks like ransomware. So quickly you can do that. You can also add to the block list. So then it will be spread across your different technology layers. It could be email, could be endpoints, could be network if connected. But you can also terminate the process right here as well. So you see you have these different response functions. For files, you can also collect file and then investigate later on. You can maybe drop it in a sandbox. So this is, well, quite easy and more efficient for SOC analysts than to work with isolated log detections in the same machine. And the last what I want to show you is possible APT attack. So this is a little bit more sophisticated, but it also shows the power of XDR in its nature. So if we go through the highlights, we see the first is possible spear phishing link. And you click on a highlight, it highlights in a chain of events those relevant items. You see that there is an email address and there is a user connected to this email, and this email address received file with the subject greetings. The file, so the email came from this email address. And by the way, this email address also approached and created another 11 emails. You can see them one by one here. You can quarantine message, delete message, but first you can inspect and you can see actually who others were approached in your organization, because usually when it's targeted attack, it will be widespread. So it's not just one target, many targets. And you see the link is used. You also see the links used in some other 16 emails. And this link leads you to a domain which is suspicious. And from there, different things downloaded. So here, Chrome downloaded something. And it was downloaded on many other machines. And these machines in turn started those PowerShell, and they execute, that's the usual technique. So obfuscate base64 encoded payload started by PowerShell filelessly and doing the damage. So you see really powerful view, and you can operate, you can isolate the endpoint, you can kill the processes, you can kill the emails one by one all together, and all from one console, from XDR. Okay, moving back to my slides. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for your attention. And if there are any questions that I cannot answer live, I can do that. Otherwise, I think I will do it offline later on. I see some questions, and I think I'm still on time, so 3 minutes left. So let me see. Yes. I will start with the last one. Does my organization need to have certain maturity level to start using XDR from TrendMicro? I would say no. You would need to have our products to connect to benefit from XDR. So that's, I think, the requirement. If you have your security team in-house, you've seen it how easy it's to operate. If you have no hands, if you have no skills, then you can always turn to us for managed XDR. And what makes TrendMicro managed XDR service unique across other MSSP offerings? Now, we are different than traditional MSSP because we, of course, we focus on the quality, and the quality that we can provide will be within the ecosystem of our technology. So you would need to take TrendMicro technology to benefit from XDR. But then in turn, you get a very efficient, lean security operational model that you can apply in your organization. And that will include all technology layers where you implement XDR sensors with us. So it will be not just specific endpoints or servers or workloads or network, that will be all of them together.
Okay, thank you, Dmitri. This was TrendMicro's Dmitri Belotchkine, a regional account manager from TrendMicro.